Thank you everyone for your patience. The commissioners are taking a 5-minute break and we'll be back in just a few minutes. Chair Sizemore, we're recording, so you're ready.
All right. Well, sorry for the last minute change to everyone. We will come back into public session. And again, I would like to welcome everyone to this meeting. Our Director Griffin, can we determine that we still have everyone?
I'll just go ahead and do a roll call real quick. Vice Chair Patterson.
She's excused.
Commissioner Levy.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Reeves.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Lawson.
Present.
Thank you. And I believe Representative Kloba was not.
Still here.
Oh,
I'm sure she has to bug out shortly.
Yeah, okay. I am here, but I think I have about 5 more minutes before I have to move on to my next more constituent meetings. So thanks. I'll quietly leave when the time comes.
All right.
Okay, and then I'm just Suzanne Becker, AG.
Present.
Thank you. Okay, Chair.
Okay. So with that, again, welcome everyone. I will, as has been our practice for nearly 2 years, we are in this virtual environment. I would ask that everyone remain muted unless you are called upon to give public testimony. And utilize the raise hand functions and or the chat functions. Everything is being recorded. on this, and as well as TVW is present as well. So with that, I would ask, in acknowledgement of our law enforcement agents within the agency and the risks associated with that work, I would like to take just a moment of silence for those law enforcement officers across the country that we've lost since our last meeting. Thank you. All right, thank you. With that, we will dive into our agenda, and under tab 1, we have our consent agenda, which includes December special commission meeting minutes, new licenses and class 3 employees license, sports wagering vendor reports. Any additions or deletions from our consent agenda? Hearing and seeing none, is there a motion? Commissioner Reeves, it's unnecessary for you to raise your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move approval of our consent agenda.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Reeves and seconded by Commissioner Levy to adopt our consent agenda. And we will try to do a voice vote. So all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. With that, we'll be able to move on to our next item, which is Special Olympics of Washington 2022 Western Washington Enhanced Raffle Plan request. And we have Special Agents Roger Save and Tony Czar. We have Mary Doe, the Chief Operating Officer, and Mark Sine, VP of Accounting and Administration. So I assume, Roger or Tony, you're going to lead us off?
Yeah, I will, Chair. This is Roger.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Sizemore, Commissioners, ex officios, and staff. For the record, I'm Roger Sove. I'm a special agent assigned to the regulation unit. I'm here this morning to introduce Special Olympics of Washington and their proposal for the 2022 Enhanced Raffle. Details of the proposal are laid out in tab 2 of your commission packet, and we will require action today. If approved, the enhanced raffle would begin on January 24th of 2022, and the grand prize drawing would be conducted on May the 13th. So one thing that's a little bit different today is typically we present previous raffle results to the commission at the same time as the new proposal. However, WAC allows 60 days for Special Olympics to gather their independent financial results. And that is from the day of the grand prize drawing, which took place December 3rd of last year. So I do have some cursory results for you, but keep in mind these haven't been reviewed and the independent audit has not been completed. So this last go around, they sold approximately $5.7 million in tickets, awarded just shy of $1.4 million in prizes. And there was net proceeds to Special Olympics of just over $1.9 million. So with that, I would like to introduce Mary Doe, Chief Operating Officer, and Mark Sine, VP of Accounting and Administration. And I will stay on the line in the event that anybody has questions for me.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Mary, go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners and Representative Kloba. Thank you very, very much. I mean, I know last year was a tricky year for us with kind of moving our raffle into the summer and fall. And so now we're looking to moving it back with, as you see, we're moving it back to kind of the original timing that we've had for the last about 9 years in producing this event. And so in the packet, you'll see very similar, everything's pretty much the same in the work that we'll be doing. The pandemic obviously has slowed us down in some areas of in-person activities for our athletes. However, we are standing strong and starting to do smaller local tournaments, healthy athlete screenings, still doing a lot of work in getting schools and inclusion, representative with the younger youth demographic for Special Olympics. So lots of fabulous work, and just wanted to thank you all for your continued support, and looking forward to the possibility of launching this again in the next couple weeks. And of course, there's any questions, Mark and I are here to answer.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for either our special agents or representatives of Special Olympics?
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
I should probably come on camera so you can actually tell that I want to say something. I just had a quick follow-up question. When you all visited, I guess it's last year at this point, we had talked about being more proactive in our disclosure about the actual percentage of folks or the likelihood of winning the grand prize, which is this dream house. And I just want to again kind of get it on the record. If I recall correctly, you all had kind of made a verbal commitment to consider making a disclosure on your advertising material about the probability of actually winning the dream house, or how many folks had ever actually won it. I was just curious because I see that it's on your list to do again this year. Can you speak a little bit, and I'm sorry if I missed this in the materials and you covered this,
Yeah, no
but
worries.
can you speak a little bit about how you're gonna, or maybe address that going into this raffle cycle?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of that will be updated again on the website with FAQs, and when anybody calls, we are very speedy in the response. We've got have trained our staff to be sure to answer questions in a prompt manner. All that information is on the rules on the website. What it gets a little bit tricky, not that we don't put the information on our marketing materials, it's just there's not a ton of space to do that. So we are directing folks to the website for information or to contact us on that. There is information on the, it's 1 in 23 or 1 in 20, I believe, chances to win. We have a threshold of tickets that you have to meet in order for us to give away the house. But we have, what we are really proud of is that we have, over the last couple years, have given over $1 million out to the grand prize winner. So that's been something that we are marketing and sharing with the world, that this is really great, even though we may not be able to get to the house, and that is truly our dream someday. But that there is an opportunity to take home quite a bit of a nice chunk of money for yourselves.
Okay. Any further questions? All right. And I believe there is action for us to take. I do not have the recommended or the potential motions in front of me. Is there a motion?
This is Commissioner Levy. I move to approve Special Olympics of Washington to conduct an enhanced raffle for a dream home.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a second?
Commissioner Lawson will second.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Levy and seconded by Commissioner Lawson to allow for a Dream House enhanced raffle for Special Olympics. Is there any discussion? All right, I think I may have shortchanged the opportunity for public comment, so maybe we'll table that motion for a second, and I will allow for public comment on this prior to taking action. Is there anyone in the meeting, and again, please use the functionality of the raise hand function, or if that's not working, put something in the chat. Julie Anderson, do we have any action in the chat or anywhere? I don't see anyone.
Nope, no chat.
Okay. With that, then we will close off public comment and bring the motion off of the table. Is there any further discussion by the commission? All right, seeing none, we will try a voice vote. All those in favor, oh, excuse me, Christine Reeves, or Commissioner Reeves, did you have comment?
I did, Mr. Chair, and I'm sorry, this
okay.
technology is a little slow on my end today.
Right.
So again, I just want to reiterate, I think the importance of transparency in this process, and really, again, really appreciate the work that you all are doing to serve this critical element of our community, but recognize that when we talk about gambling, particularly as we're going to go into a topic on self-exclusion next, we recognize that there are folks who are going to participate in this process, and making sure that we are transparent about the probabilities of actually winning these items is really, really important. Okay. And so while I realize, having spent lots of money on marketing, it may be tough to get it on that flyer. Sure. I just think it's critical that we help people understand the probability of actually winning that dream home versus the other resources available in this process. So I do hope that you will continue to commit to display this on your website, that you'll include it in your FAQ. So I really was pleased to hear that, and hope that you will continue to provide that transparency in this process.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments from commissioners? All right, seeing none, we will again try a voice vote, and it would be beneficial and helpful to me if commissioners could stay on camera as much as possible here. If I have to, you have to. So with that, we'll try the voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. And thank you, Mary, Mark, awesome. And our special agents.
Thank you. Happy New Year. Appreciate you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Very good. We will now move to the next agenda item, which is a presentation on self-exclusion. And I believe we have our special agent supervisor, Tony Hughes, with us. Hi, Tony.
Good morning, commissioners and ex officios. I have construction in my area, so if I lose my internet connection, I will do my best to get back fast. I lost it for 4 hours yesterday, so don't anticipate it, but you never know.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Again, my name is Tony Hughes. I'm a special agent supervisor within the regulation unit of the Gambling Commission. The reason why I'm here today is talk about the self-exclusion program, and specifically talk about the measurables in the annual report that will be coming back, obviously in the future, but just making sure that we're looking far enough ahead of what we want to measure. The PowerPoint should go pretty quick, but obviously open for questions throughout, but it should go pretty questions at the end, obviously. So with that, Julie, I think you're going to be running the next slide, please. Thank you. Again, with our measurables, we plan to report how many people have enrolled in the program, how many new participants each year, and the percent change from the previous year. So we will be tracking how many people are enrolling in the program. Next slide, Julie. Within the the self-exclusion program, we have four different time periods four different time period options, 1, 3, 5, or 10 years. We plan to measure the number of participants by time period, the total number of participants for each time period, how many participants are due to come off the list in the upcoming year, and how many participants remain on the list after their time period selected expired. As a quick reminder on that last bullet, obviously there needs to be action from the participant to remove themselves from the list. So we plan on just to see how many people to stay on that list. Next slide, please. Removal from the program. So how many participants choose to remove themselves from the self-exclusion program after their expiration date, and we plan to track what time period these participants initially selected. Next slide, thank you. And then on the breaches or confiscated funds, we will be tracking how many participants in the self-exclusion program are caught on site, and then a description of those type of incidents. Are they at the door? at the bar, at the table games, or different areas within the card rooms. And then next slide on the confiscated funds. We do plan to track, bear with me for a second, how much was confiscated. Did the confiscated funds get forwarded to the Healthcare Authority, the Problem Gambling Account, other organizations? And where did the confiscated funds go and how much? Obviously, in the WAC requirement, at least 70% is required to go to the Healthcare Authority and the Problem Gambling Account, and we will list the other charitable nonprofits and how much is there or goes there. On the next slide, we will be doing we do plan to do ongoing compliance inspections in regards to self-exclusion, and we'll report back the outcome of those compliance inspections. And then on the last slide, currently we will report back if there's any changes with tribal participation in the statewide system, on enrollment forms that are received, if they've been denied, and for insufficient information, persons attempting to enroll others, or other examples that might come up. And then lastly, on the online enrollment update, that is tied to our IT modernization, we will take that opportunity to report back on the update there as well. And with that, that is what we have, and I'll open it up from here.
Excuse me, I have to unmute myself. Thank you, Tony, for that. Are there any questions for Tony?
I don't have a question, Mr. Chair. Oh, it looks like Dallas Burnett has something in the chat.
Okay.
But would love the opportunity to say, Tony, thank you for putting together that presentation and being able to reflect all of the things that I think the commission communicated were important to us in getting that report back. So appreciate your hard work.
Thank you. You're welcome.
All right, and Tony, do you have access to the chat? I'm not sure if you can.
Let me try.
Handle that question, or I'm pretty sure that Tina probably has it.
I'm scrolling down. I'm looking for it now.
No problem.
All right, I'm reading the question. Are those that are self-excluded have to submit a form to be removed from the self-exclusion program? Why would it require if they chose upfront the time period? That is in WAC, that's the way the WAC rule is written. They can select the time periods 1, 3, 5, or 10 years. And then there is, they will be notified prior to that notification, but then the participant would have to take action to remove themselves off that list. The form has not yet been created, but there'll be an additional form.
So essentially, Tony, if I understand, and as I recall the discussion, we're adding kind of an opt-out at the end to where you designate the time period. When that is about to expire, we try to notify you. As it expires, it takes that additional action by the individual to remain or to confirm that they want to stay banned, essentially, or self-excluded.
Yes and no. As I would describe it, is correct. They would, if they selected a 1 year time period, they'd be notified. I don't have it verbatim in front of me. I believe it's 45-day notice. They'd be notified that time period is expiring, and then they would remain on that list unless they submitted a form to remove themselves from the list.
Okay.
And I got a thumbs up, so that's good.
Okay. All right. Any further questions, comments on this presentation? And I guess I have one, and I'm not sure if this is the time or place for the question, but is there a kind of an interactive process or some way that we are checking in with operators to see if this is too much bureaucracy, if it's doable for them? How much effort? I know we did a small business assessment on the front side that tried to evaluate it. Is there I guess, is there a check-in for those businesses to let us know how much of a hassle this is, and is it, then we can make that assessment that it's worth it.
There was I was not a part of it, but Tina can probably fill in there. There was stakeholder meetings, I believe, approximately a year ago, maybe a little bit less, and there was feedback received from operators at that point. But I think obviously, if and when we receive comments, we'll be letting our chain of command know as well.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tina.
And so during the rulemaking process, we did, as we changed the rules, they were sent out. And so through that stakeholder feedback, that would have, just as with any rulemaking process, they would have been notified and, able to give comment if this was going to be overbearing for them at that time.
Okay. Yeah, I think for me, it would be important that, once we have some practical experience and they have some practical experience, that we take another look at how it's been for them administering this program. So.
Noted. I appreciate it.
Okay. I see a chat question of, as of right now, are any tribes participating?
I'll answer that. And the program doesn't get up and operating until May 1st. So we'll continue. I believe the plan originally, even when Director Trujillo started this process, was to continue to engage tribes in the conversation, and most likely once it's up and operating for a period of time, then they'll have a better idea of what the process is as well. But we will continue to engage the tribes and keep them informed as to the status of the program.
And help them join up if they would like to, I'm sure. Okay, any further questions, comments from commissioners? All right, any closing comments, Tony?
No, I appreciate the time.
Okay, Tina, did we provide you what you needed? Awesome. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and close our presentation on self-exclusion. Thank you, everyone. And we will now move to default, and it will be presented by Adam Teal, our interim legal manager. Welcome, Adam.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. I don't think we have any ex officios left, but good morning if you're there. Again, for the record, Adam Teal, acting legal manager. Got one default for you this month, and that is Kuong Dang. Cause number CR 2021-00961. Mr. Dang has a cardroom employee license number 68-07669. That license authorizes public cardroom activity at Roman Casino in Seattle. That license expires March 15th, 2022. On June 29th, 2021, one of the Gambling Commission's special agents was contacted by Roman Casino's general manager. He was notifying the agent that one of their employees, Kuong Dang, had just been arrested for stealing chips while on duty. Special agent requested and then reviewed video surveillance footage that had been compiled by Roman staff. And in analyzing that footage, was able to confirm that over the course of 3 different nights, Mr. Dang had stole $16,500 in chips through 4 different incidents. And in all 4 times, Mr. Dang had used the same technique, extending his right arm out to the table and grabbing chips with his left hand. And again, he confirmed over 4 times it was approximately $16,500 in chips. Interim Director Griffin signed these charges on October 19th, 2021. They were issued to Mr. Dang by regular and certified mail, meaning he would have received them within 3 days of October 19th, 2021. That means that he needed to file a response with the Gambling Commission by November 15th, 2021. As of this date, the Gambling Commission has received no communication from Mr. Dang. As a result, the Commission may take final action. Mr. Dang cannot prove with clear and convincing evidence that he is qualified for licensure, and therefore staff recommends you sign the order in front of you revoking Mr. Dang's license number 68-07669. And I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Adam. Any questions for Adam? Okay, I am not seeing any. Is Mr. Dang present in this meeting and wishing to address the commission? And Julie Anderson, I'll ask for you to do a little sweep, if you can, to the extent possible, and let me know if you find him present. Mr. Dang? Julie Anderson, do you?
I don't see him, Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, so he does not appear to be present. Is there any questions, comments from the commissioners? All right, is there a motion?
I move to revoke Kuan Dang's public card room employee license number 68-07669 as presented by staff.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Levy and seconded by Commissioner Reeves to revoke Kuan Dang's public card room employee license number 68-07669 as presented by staff. Last opportunity. Any comments? Okay, hearing none, we will try once again to have a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. All right, thank you, Adam. Do we see you anymore this meeting?
Well, I'll be here if you need me, but nothing on the agenda for me.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yep. Have a good day, everyone.
All right. Next up, we have a series of rules for consideration. Under tab 5, we have a rule petition to amend card room surveillance. I believe Ashley Layden, our rules coordinator, will be presenting for a while. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you. Chair Sizemore, Commissioners and ex officios. For the record, I'm Ashley Layden, Rules Coordinator with the Gambling Commission. Tim Merrill of Maverick Gaming in Kirkland, Washington, is proposing to amend existing rules to allow for the ability to monitor card room gambling activity from one card room to a centralized surveillance room. The petitioner feels this change is needed because the ability to have staff in a central location allows for the surveillance observers to be under experienced surveillance management that can provide consistent training. The petitioner states that the surveillance management team would be able to work together when it comes to investigating, reporting, writing, and reviewing any questionable footage. The petitioner feels that a centralized surveillance monitoring location would be an opportunity to promote consistency and allow instant communication to gaming agents and allow surveillance management an opportunity to respond to equipment malfunctions quickly and effectively, which will streamline reporting to the Gambling Commission. More importantly, the petitioner notes this change is needed because they're having a difficult time finding employees during these trying times, and to run an efficient surveillance room, card rooms need to have qualified people to protect casino assets, customers, and employees, and to maintain compliance. The petitioner feels the effect of this rule change would ensure that all regulations are followed and that video preservation is being observed as a controlled environment promotes confidentiality, teamwork, and safety. The petitioner points out that this change would require an encrypted point-to-point connection from one card room to one central location. Under current rules, Class F and House Bank card room licensees are required to maintain analog or digital closed circuit television systems, CCTV systems, within their licensed premises that is monitored by the licensee's card room employees. Licensed service suppliers may remotely access digital CCTV systems for maintenance or repair under certain conditions. Staff has the following policy concerns with this petition. RCW 946-240 prohibits the transmission of gambling information via the internet. Equipment that allows the transmission of gambling information during a live round of play before the outcome of a wager has been determined has not been previously allowed. Staff also has concerns about what type of security encryption will be used to transmit surveillance video. Will it still be a closed surveillance system? Where will the on-site surveillance video be stored, and will that location be accessible by Gambling Commission staff and law enforcement agents? Will there be enough bandwidth to view surveillance without interruption? Will it have the ability to review, playback, record, magnify video surveillance with clarity, showing fluid motion and clearly distinguish the value of currency, coins, gaming chips, playing cards, the outcome of the game, and will it be able to effectively monitor in detail all required areas? What will the response times be of the licensed card rooms when contacted by the centralized surveillance room and vice versa? There's concerns over licensure of the centralized surveillance room and its employees since they are not tied to a specific licensee. Who would be responsible for the centralized surveillance room if violations were to occur when they are tied to a number of licensed card rooms? And the number of card rooms the centralized surveillance room can adequately cover, such as staffing, etc. The petitioner reported they have received permission in Colorado and Nevada to operate centralized surveillance systems. The Gambling Commission staff has not confirmed that any jurisdictions in the U.S. currently allow for this. Under the requirements of the Administrative Procedure Act, the Commission must take action on this petition within 60 days of receiving it. Your options are to accept the petition and initiate rulemaking proceedings by filing the rule as proposed for further discussion, or to deny the petition in writing, stating the reasons for denial and specifically address the concerns stated in the petition, or where appropriate, indicate alternative means by which the agency will address the concerns raised in the petition. Staff recommends initiating rulemaking that would address any policy concerns. And with that, I will turn it over to Tim Merrill of Maverick Gaming to speak to his petition. And Tim does have a PowerPoint that I'm going to show my screen here.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to speak to us today.
All right, you may proceed, Mr. Merrill.
All right, thank you. Actually, can we go to, how do I control the, if we
You can
go
just
to the
tell me
overview?
and I'll flip through.
Oh yeah, please go to the next one, sorry. Next one. I think we gotta, there we go. So our objective, as Ashley alluded to, is to provide a consistent product for surveillance across the portfolio of properties. One of the challenges we have obviously is recruiting in the market and making sure that we're able to deliver that consistent product from a surveillance perspective at all of our properties. What we'd like to do is build a centralized surveillance monitoring room. It wouldn't be where we house the data. It wouldn't be where the systems themselves would still sit at the properties, just as it's described in the WAC. This would just be where everybody sits in one place to view it. Our proposal would be comprised of our existing surveillance team with the addition of new team members with specialized skills. Our property management is trained in the system, so if somebody needed immediate access to a remote location, we'd be able to get into that location immediately. We could leverage our current staffing, improve our training, and support common processes across our organization. All properties have and continue to have their own totally functioning operating surveillance systems and rooms, and our centralized surveillance room will act as the main viewing area and we'll have remote viewing for all properties. Actually, if you could go to just the network page. Thanks. Next one. So this is kind of complicated looking, but what it's really showing is that the data is completely encrypted from point to point. It's actually not on the internet. It's on an intranet. It's a fiber tunnel, encrypted by 128 bits on both sides. The network is restricted and isolated from all other networks in the building, and each site's connected with separately with the telco to a fiber connection, and we also have cellular LTE and 5G redundancy built into the plan. And with that, I think that's all we have on this one.
All right, Mr. Merrill, did you have any additional comments outside of the PowerPoint that you wish to make?
No, just that this would be very important to us to ensure that we continue to improve on the professionalism and security and integrity inside of our buildings.
All right. Are there any questions, Commissioner Reeves, for the petitioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just so I'm really clear, and I apologize if it's just my obtuseness, but what you are asking for essentially is that your overarching organization owns multiple locations. And if I'm understanding this petition correctly, you are asking for a centralized location that serves all of your facilities. Is that correct?
That's correct, Commissioner, from a viewing standpoint. So we would continue to have our fully operating surveillance systems in each of the rooms. That would not change. All that would happen is that we would be able to remotely view each of those rooms in one centralized location.
Okay, and then I'm sorry, this question is actually for Ashley. Ashley, if I understand correctly, we have no precedence in Washington for having done that in the past for other organizations. Am I reading that correctly?
I believe that is correct, but I'm going to defer to Bill McGregor, Special Agent Bill McGregor, Special Agent Supervisor. Thanks, Bill.
And don't worry, Tim, it's not to tell you the direction of my thoughts. I'm just trying to confirm that I'm understanding the facts in the petition.
Mr. McGregor.
Yeah, for the record, Bill McGregor, Special Agent Supervisor with Regulation Unit in Spokane. And that is correct, Commissioner Reeves, that there's right now all surveillance is observed on premises and is not allowed to be piped outside of the premises.
And so I have one more follow-up question, Mr. Chair. So just so I'm clear then, this essentially, in legislative terms, it's what we would refer to as kind of a pilot, in that it's not that it couldn't happen here in Washington. There's nothing restricting it from happening per se. We just have a lot of questions about how it would happen. Is that accurate, Ashley?
If you don't mind, Bill, I'll answer that. Yes, I would say that's accurate. There's obviously the policy concerns that Ashley listed there in your packet. We would be addressing those if we started looking at it from a rule standpoint to determine and make sure that we could meet those criteria or what we feel is necessary to ensure the security of the systems.
Perfect. I think that answers all of my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for either the petitioner or our staff? And I guess I have a question for you, Mr. Merrill. I am seeing that it appears that this system would actually be additional staffing. So you'd have your existing staffing and then this would be additional staffing with specialized education training.
No, sir. This would be, we would not man the rooms remotely all the time. Our on-property teams would have access to those rooms, and we would take our current on-property teams and put them in the centralized location. So we'd be using the same staffing, and obviously we'd be able to pay our staffing more because we wouldn't need quite as many folks because we're monitoring 19 rooms at one location. So you get a better quality management team, you get a better quality observer. We're not able, we're actually, it's very hard for us to find anybody with any experience in surveillance right now. We're really starting with ground zero every time we hire somebody.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess the some of the materials seem to indicate that existing staff plus, so that doesn't seem to be accurate.
It would be the existing staff, plus we would be hired, but not all the staff, you know, we have turnover in surveillance. So as you have turnover, you replace.
Okay.
Again, it's very hard for us to hire people with any experience at all into this position. Normally we're getting kids that are, honestly, they're coming from other jobs that are minimum wage and trying to start a new career, and then we lose them very fast.
Okay, and just for curiosity's sake, are these employees, Bart, are they represented and working under a collective bargaining agreement?
No.
No? Okay, at will. All right. Well, Commissioner Reeves, I see your hand.
Thanks. I know I said I thought that was all my questions, but you actually sparked a really good point, Mr. Chair, because I also read the material to understand that this centralized surveillance room would be adding more of a management type quality of staff, I guess, is how I read the material. So thank you for clarifying, Mr. Merrill, that that's not accurate. Can you talk then a little bit about, well, I'm an economic developer, so I appreciate economies of scale and return on investment, and increased efficiencies for sure. I guess what I'd like to understand as we're thinking about piloting this idea, how that creates deficiencies or inequity in how we how you perceive this. Allowing for the same level of accountability and transparency that is expected of our other facilities that are regulated, and how this transition potentially doesn't create any diminished capacity in the on-site facilities.
So first, the on-site facilities would always have a qualified person, i.e. the AGM or GM, that could operate the surveillance room in the event they needed to. A lot of some of the challenges we face today in surveillance is the ability to get reviews done in a timely fashion, in an accurate fashion, the ability to provide the WSGC with the right information the first time, not have to go back and relook at information again, not having to have multiple eyes across film when we get a request from the WSGC, not having, when we have an incident, not having to have managers come from other facilities to review film, because we need to provide it to law enforcement or WSGC, because we have a lack of training. And that training is very hard because it's so hard to get people across 19 rooms that you're not able to pay enough, right, to get qualified people that want to stay and make a career of it inside of the organization. So what we get not only is yes, there's an economy of scale, obviously, but we're getting a better qualified applicant that improves the professionalism of the review process, the investigative process, the reporting process, and inherently that helps us with the integrity of the business, as well as provides better information back to WSGC and other law enforcement agencies as needed.
And you may continue there, Commissioner Reeves, if you have follow-up.
I did. I think, Mr. Merrill, you actually just covered it, because I hope what I just heard you say is that your proposition to the commission is that this would create expedited efficiencies in compliance. Is that an accurate assessment of what you just shared?
That is an accurate assessment.
All right, thank you. Thanks for your indulgence, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Any further questions, comments from commissioners? I have another for you, Mr. Merrill. So obviously, and it has been our history, once a rule petition is accepted by the commission, then it essentially becomes our rulemaking process. So we as an agency do the work, whether it be with stakeholders or others, and then staff essentially at the end of the process provides the commission recommended language for those rules. Do you acknowledge that's kind of how you guys anticipate this process going?
Yes.
Okay. And so with that, if in fact through that process of rulemaking, it was determined that the centralized location needed to be in a urban or suburban area in the state of Washington, would that still meet the needs and kind of, is that what that Maverick Gaming is anticipating for this?
Yeah, that would be the intent, that it would be here in Washington State.
And in a suburban or an area of
area,
population that we would have agents
yes.
in the vicinity.
Yeah, part of it is because we know the WSGC is short-staffed. We'd be more than happy to locate the centralized viewing area where it's convenient for staff.
Okay. All right. I probably have a lot more questions, but I don't know that it's necessary for us to take action. And I guess my statement is certainly that if we move forward with this, we are going to need to make sure that each one of those bullets and any other resulting bullets that staff have concerns about, we'll have to have answers to those. So one more round. Any other questions? Commissioner Reeves.
Sorry, so just to confirm, Mr. Chair, this is a question for you or for staff. By initiating rulemaking in this process, and I know I should have figured this out, I've been on the commission for like 6 months, but really all this is doing is authorizing our staff to go out and basically do the work to answer the bulleted questions in there and then still bring that back to the commission to initiate final rulemaking. Is that correct?
I'm going to ask Tina to go ahead and answer that.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioner Reeves. Yes, so, oh, wow, my video is not seem to be working. Sorry.
It's working a little.
So yes, staff, once we receive a petition, turnaround time is very short. We have 60 days to bring this before you. So staff does very minimal work, just looks at it as a very broad brush strokes. And so yes, if you decide to initiate rulemaking, staff at that time will begin doing the work that is necessary to answer any potential questions that we have and work with stakeholders on the broad basis, because any rulemaking is not with the intent of only responding to one particular licensee's requests or needs. We have to make sure that it involves any possible scenario and circumstances. And so, yes, it will take time. There is no timeline for us at that point, but this just initiates the process with the filing of the 101.
Perfect. I'm getting better at remembering the process. Thank you, Director.
All right. Any final comments, Mr. Merrill or Ashley? Any last nuggets for us prior to a public comment period? Anything, Mr. Merrill?
No.
You're good? Okay. If that is the case, then we will have a public comment period. So regarding this rule petition specifically, if there's anyone on the meeting here that would like to make public comment, please use the raise hand function and go on camera and open up your microphone. And I'm going to check with you, Julie Anderson. Is there anybody that is signed up to talk to us on this?
Nope.
All right. Last call. Anyone for public comment on this rule petition? All right. I'm seeing no one. So we will close public comment on this rule petition. Is there a motion?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Levy. I move to initiate rulemaking proceedings as proposed for further discussion understanding that there's several policy issues that need to be looked into.
All right, is there a second to the motion?
I can second it, unless
Okay.
Commissioner Lawson wants to jump in there. She looked like she was looking for her mute, so
Yep.
I don't want
I
to.
it wasn't coming up on my screen. So, but yeah, I can second it as well.
Okay, we'll spread the wealth a little bit. So it has been moved by Commissioner Levy and seconded by Commissioner Lawson to initiate rulemaking proceedings as proposed for further discussion. So any final commission discussion prior to a vote?
I would just say from the outset, I think it sounds to me like a really good idea, maybe, but I'd be interested to dig further into some of these policy decisions and see where we end up.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Levy. All right, with that, we will again try a voice vote. So all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. All right, thank you, Mr. Merrill. I think you're going to stick with us. The next item, next tab on our agenda is petition for rule change, rule petition to amend WAC 230-15-140, which is wager limits for house bank card rooms or card games, excuse me. Ashley Layden, our rules coordinator. Welcome back, Ashley.
Thank you. Chair Sizemore, Commissioners and ex officios. For the record, I'm Ashley Layden. Tim Merrill of Maverick Gaming in Kirkland, Washington is proposing to amend WAC 230-15-140, wagering limits for house bank card games, and also WAC 230-15-135, wagering limits for non-house banked card games, to increase the single wager limit and bonus wager limit, and also the maximum single wager limit on poker at Class F and house bank card game licensees from 300 to 500 on all tables, with the ability to raise the limit to 1,000 on 25% of the tables, rounding to the nearest whole number. The petitioner feels this change is needed to keep the wagering limits for card rooms fair and consistent with competitors. The petitioner feels that raising the wager limits will allow the card room industry to continue to be competitive in the gambling market, which will allow the card rooms to keep jobs in local communities. The petitioner feels the effect of this rule change would allow about 1% of customers in the card room industry to wager at a larger amount. Pursuant to RCW 946-0282, the number of tables in a card room shall not exceed a total of 15 separate tables. Therefore, what the petitioner is asking for is that the wager limits be increased from 300 to 500 on all tables, with the ability to raise limits to 1,000 on up to 4 tables. House bank card games opened in 1997 with wager limits set at $25. Wager limits were increased to $100 in 2000, to $200 in 2004, and to the current limit of $300 in 2009. In 2016, the commissioners received a petition from the Recreational Gaming Association requesting an increase to $500 to match the limits of tribal gaming operations at that time. The petition was accepted for further discussion, however, eventually withdrawn by the petitioner after hearing commissioner concerns about increasing wager limits and problem gambling. Single wager limits for poker must not exceed $40. However, in 2012, Class F and house bank card rooms were allowed to offer single wager limits not to exceed $100 on Texas Hold'em games. And in 2016, single wager limits on poker were raised to $100 at Class F card rooms and to $300 at house bank card rooms. Later that year, Class F card rooms also raised single wager limits on poker from $100 to $300. The commission has received several petitions requesting to either amend or repeal single wager limits for poker. The most recent petition was received in August of 2020. However, that petition was withdrawn by the petitioner. Under the requirements of the Administrative Procedure Act, the commissioners must take action on this petition within 60 days of receiving it. Your options are to accept the petition and initiate rulemaking proceedings by filing the rule as proposed for further discussion, or to deny the petition in writing stating the reasons for denial and specifically address the concerns stated in the petition, or where appropriate, indicate alternative means by which the agency will address the concerns raised in the petition. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Merrill to present on his petition. I do want to just note that I have 2 public comments that I've received, but I'll bring those up during the public comment period.
Okay, thanks, Ashley. Mr. Merrill.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to note that while this petition is being put forth by Maverick Gaming, it was actually done in partnership with a number of the card room industry stakeholders. Goal is to continue to offer a high quality entertainment product, support the thousands of jobs across the state, and continue to support our communities through tax revenue and charitable giving. We believe the increase in the wager limits will help us achieve these goals. I don't really have any other comments other than that.
All right, but you're in the hot seat. So are there any commissioner comments? Did I see your hand, Commissioner Reeves?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I was just curious, Mr. Merrill, I know that this conversation came up as recently as 2016, and while I was not on the commission then, at the time, the request to make this increase was withdrawn based on concerns. Can you talk a little bit about what has changed since then that you feel warrants bringing this petition forward again?
Well, I believe the concerns in 2016, I wasn't here in 2016, but the concerns were around problem gaming. I can't speak for all of the card rooms, other than that we now have a documented problem gaming policy in place for the state of Washington. Maverick as a company, we have already implemented as of Q4 of 2019 problem gaming centralized system, so that when somebody self-excludes themselves from one of our properties, they're self-excluded from all 19. Since its inception, we've had 100 people self-exclude themselves across our company. The other factor that really drove this was the new tribal compacts, right? And we felt as though it was a good time to bring it back up as their wagering limits increased. We felt that it was a good time for us to remain competitive. We need to come back to the commission and ask as well.
Okay. Any further questions for Mr. Merrill? All right, I have one, I guess. So, Mr. Merrill, looking at our legislative declaration of creating the Gambling Commission, so 946-010, the first sentence of the legislative declaration is the public policy of the state of Washington on gambling is to keep the criminal element out of gambling and to promote the social welfare of the people by limiting the nature and scope of gambling activities and by strict regulation and control. Can you describe to me how your proposal fits in with that legislative declaration?
The controls haven't changed, Mr. Chairman. The only difference is we have a small population of customers that do bet up to the maximum already and would like to bet higher. And if we don't provide them that product, then we may lose those customers to the tribal facilities where the higher limits have already been approved by the commission. And so we're fighting to remain relevant in the communities in which we operate and keep those customers in our facilities so that we can keep our team members employed.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for Ashley or Mr. Merrill, the petitioner? All right, seeing none, thank you, Mr. Merrill. Again, we will go ahead and open up an opportunity for public comment. And again, just as a reminder, I will ask that you please utilize the raise hand function. Go ahead and put yourself on camera and open up your microphone. And Ashley, I see your hand.
Thank you, Chair. My first comment is from Jerry Howe on behalf of well, in support of this petition to amend WAC 230.15.135 and WAC 230.15.140 to allow for increased wager limits in Class F and house banked card rooms. That is from Jerry Howe on behalf of Joker's Casino in Richland, Nob Hill Casino in Yakima, Roxy's Casino in Seattle, Lancer Casino in Clarkston, Wild Goose Casino in Ellensburg, Clearwater Saloon and Casino in East Wenatchee, and Club 48 Poker Room in Yakima. The second comment Gambling Commission staff received was from David Hill, owner of Fortune Casinos and Fortune Poker in Hawks Prairie, who stated the following. I would like to express my opinion that the request for a limit increase proposed by Tim Merrill of Maverick Gaming takes things too far at this time. I understand Mr. Merrill's desire to increase the betting limits in order to be on a more even ground with the tribal casinos in Washington state, but I do not agree that the privately held card rooms should be treated the same as the tribal casinos that are operated by sovereign nations on federal lands for the benefits of thousands of tribal members. As the owner of 4 WSGC licensed card rooms, I want to go on the record to state that I have no affiliation with Maverick and their representatives, and I do not support this request from Maverick Gaming.
All right, thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
I will note that we have an individual identified as Neil. Neil, I'd ask that you add your last name and where you come from in the chat if you could. And Neil, his comment is, I also would like the wager limits to increase. And then I see a hand. Let me get to my participants list. Oh, Neil, that's your hand. So you can please identify yourself for the record, and you will have the ability to make public comment. Julie Anderson, do we have? I see he appears to still be muted. Mr. Neil, can you unmute yourself?
I'm giving him the ability now, sir.
Okay. Neil, if you can go on camera, if that's possible for you. It appears that your microphone is unmuted.
Mr. Chair, it's showing up on my end as still both his camera and his microphone were muted.
Okay.
Looks like Julie's resolved it.
Oh. Welcome, Neil. Nope, you're still muted. Julie Anderson, you got an idea for him?
Yep.
Oh, there you are.
All right.
We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Good morning to all the commissioners. I was scheduled to meet with you guys next month about the same wager limits. I just want to agree with Tim to increase the wager limits because, I mean, right now, tribal casinos, they don't host poker anymore. They got rid of the poker rooms. And I mean, there's really only small poker rooms now, and $300 is very minimal. And I think like in about 10 years, $300 won't be worth as much anymore, and because of inflation and all that. And I agree that we should increase it now because eventually it'll probably have to be increased anyway. So I second that. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Neil.
All right. Thank you.
All right. And I believe I had another hand.
Chair, there's a 206-841-2202 that's has the ability to speak to the commission now.
All right. Their microphone seems to still be muted.
They need to unmute themselves for that.
Okay. And if they're on a phone, is that *6 or something like that?
I believe it's *9. We could go on to the next guest if you would like.
Okay.
They're good to go.
Appears. Okay. I see Max Faulkner has his hand up. Mr. Faulkner, if you could go on camera and unmute yourself, please. And I appreciate everyone's patience. I definitely want to do all that we can to provide this public comment. So I'm willing to keep working at getting folks up. Mr. Faulkner, are you able to unmute yourself or put yourself on camera? Okay, and I'm not seeing anything for Mr. Faulkner in the chats. Mr. Faulkner, I'd ask that you keep trying to break through, and Julie Anderson, to the extent you can, do what we can, and I'll call on the next individual, David Hill. So I think I saw you pop up on camera a second ago. If you can bring yourself up on camera, you appear to be unmuted.
Yeah, so actually my camera keeps turning itself off, so
okay.
Apparently that's a hardware issue. But
okay, you can please identify yourself for the record.
Yes, this is David Hill. I'm the owner of the Fortune Casinos and Fortune Poker, and also part owner of Hawks Prairie now. So I wanted to address my comment. My concern is that I understand that, you know, card rooms, and obviously it's a financial benefit for me if limits are raised. But the card rooms have kind of gone up, not in lockstep, but always following tribal. My concern was the $1,000 limits. I think it's asking for too much. I think very few tribes, I believe only 4 at this time, are currently offering over $500 limits. There's a process they have to go through in order to have higher limits. I don't believe anyone is regularly offering over 1,000. So what I am comfortable with is $500 limits. I would very much support the $500 limit universally. I think the $1,000 on limited tables is difficult to enforce. It's the reason that the Gambling Commission got rid of, back in, I believe, 2006, when they got rid of the limited number of tables because of enforcement issues. But one of the biggest benefits, not only for being able to wager higher, but currently we have stacks of chips everywhere with $300 limits. We have commissions on Pai Gow potentially and on Baccarat. With $300, it's an odd amount. $500 is a simple amount. It is a standardized chip in basically every casino in the world. 300 is an awkward number, but to me, that's another positive for raising the limit to 500. But what I don't support is the $1,000. I think that's taking things a step too far to where we're effectively in line with the tribes. And I don't think that's the right move for us at this time. So.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hill. Mr. Faulkner, I see your hand again. On my end, it appears that you are still muted. Can you try to talk to us? Julie Anderson, you have any tips for us?
Chair, I've given him the ability to speak to us. He just needs to unmute himself. There should be a little mic next to his square. He put his hand up, so it should be either to the left of where he put his hand up. And there's a line through your mic, so if you could just click on that, you can unmute yourself.
Okay.
Chair, that's all I have.
Okay. And my microphone's to the right of my raise hand function up on the top of the screen. But Mr. Faulkner, please keep trying. We're going to move to the next individual that's has their hand up. Roxanne Waldron, if you could go on camera, unmute yourself and identify yourself for the record, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair Sizemore. I am Roxanne Waldron. I am the State Problem Gambling Program Manager at the Healthcare Authority. And I always have to advocate from the point of view of problem gambling. And it's always a concern when wager limits are being considered to be raised and there are opportunities to spend more money faster. So I have deep concerns about this, but I'd need some more time to look at the research to be able to comment on any proposed rule change.
Okay. Thank you for that. Yes. Mr. Faulkner, you would be next if you are able to unmute yourself. We'll try one other thing. Mr. Faulkner, can you type in the chat at all? So I'll ask my fellow commissioners, any ideas or thoughts so we can help facilitate Mr. Faulkner getting on here? Oh, looks like can't unmute myself. So if you, obviously you're able to hear me, Mr. Faulkner, can you, in a sentence or two in the chat, describe your position?
Oh, he can.
Is there a way he can call in, like outside of this?
Mm-hmm.
Would that be easier?
So, can you send him a message, Julie Anderson, with the phone number?
Yep, I'll put it in the chat so he can see it.
Okay. I will not be accused of not trying. So I am seeing we've breached 11 o'clock. I think, Julie Anderson, if you are able to keep working with Mr. Faulkner and there's not an objection from commissioners, I would propose that we take about a 5-minute break so folks can use restroom or grab a fresh beverage. I think we can keep working on this and hopefully when we come back in about 5 minutes, so at 11:10 we'll resume and hopefully we'll have Mr. Faulkner. So thanks everyone for the patience, but I certainly want to try to do what we can here. So Commissioner Reeves?
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Chair. Given the materials, can Ashley just give me a quick call regarding the staff recommendation piece of the materials?
Okay, I'm going to ask Suzanne Becker if that...
Is that appropriate or no?
Yep, if that works.
I'm sorry, it got a little garbled there. Can you repeat?
Is Commissioner Reeves able to have a sidebar conversation with our rules coordinator while we're on a break?
She may.
Okay. All right. We'll see everyone back at 11:10. Hopefully we will have this figured out. So see everybody in about 5.
Thank you.
Commissioner Reeves?
Yes.
Where can
Ashley,
I find
just
your
sent
phone
you
number?
the phone number.
What's that, Julie?
I just sent you her phone number.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Mr. Faulkner, are you still there? Can you say something in the chat for me?
Julie Anderson.
Oops. Commissioner or Chair Sizemore, I have Mr. Faulkner on the phone. We are walking through some technical difficulties.
Okay. Thank you for your continued effort. If it is 11:10 now, if my fellow commissioners could go on screen for a moment at least so that I know you're back. Okay. Thank you, thank you. It appears that we have a quorum once again. Let me check. Suzanne, you're back as well?
I am.
Okay, great. So Julie, you feel like we're able to hear Mr. Faulkner now, or?
Yeah.
Oh. So Mr. Faulkner, please identify yourself for the record, and thank you for our patience, and glad you're here.
Okay. Sorry. Thanks for your patience.
Mm-hmm.
That was frustrating. I could see the icons. I was clicking on them, but nothing would happen. Nothing would happen. So they had me go back in and come back.
All right.
Thank you.
Now you've frozen. You may need to turn your video off, and we'll at least have your audio. You may just have some bandwidth issues.
Okay. Here's just my audio.
Okay, we can hear you.
Okay. Huh. Got pretty good internet here. Thank Acting Chair Griffin and staff. And thanks for your patience. I'm Max Faulkner. I'm managing partner at Atomic Bowl and Jokers here in Richland. I represent a lot of the small mom and pop casinos, mini casinos, enhanced card rooms we have in the state. And by that I mean we're fairly small card room, but we have a bowling center, arcade, comedy club, and nightclub. So I have 134 employees just right here. And I looked at the 7 places that I'm affiliated with. It's probably well over 400 employees in the 7 little mini casinos here. Also, we paid the city of Richland last year $421,000 in gaming tax too. So, we're nice, and we consider ourselves as a community asset here too. Have a lot of events and fundraisers and stuff like that. I go back to the early days when we had a $25 limit when you opened your card room, and then after about 6 months, if you passed all the requirements, you could go to $100. When the card rooms were trying to get $300 limits a number of years ago, I thought, wow, that really doesn't, I'm okay with it, but it really doesn't apply to me. We don't have any players that big. I like to gamble, but I'm like a $5 and $10 player. Well, I was wrong. We have a lot of $300 players, and they often are betting $300 on more than a couple of spots. And we even had to go to purple $500 chips here that we can bring out to the table if somebody's on a winning streak. They have stacks of $100 black and $25 green chips, and it takes a lot of time to do the fills and stuff like that. So we've got kind of purple $500 chips even. That's kind of play. And I think maybe some of those people, maybe they went to Vegas, pay the limit like before, but now that we can accommodate some of that, they stay here. I'm just speculating on that though. But as many of you know, the minimum wage keeps going up, and it's gone up again, another 80 cents, and that's fine. I just did a little math this morning in the back of my head on what that would cost us, because we're just going to raise everybody, surveillance, security. So about 15 people, average roughly employees in the casino a day, give or take 15, 16 hours, 17 hours. So it's going to cost us in payroll well over $70,000 just in jokers this year. So that's another $70,000 that we got to cover somehow if we're going to stay in business. And in gambling, our win, we have a gross win, then we pay our expenses out of that. Our gross win is basically the edge on a bet, the house edge on blackjack is about 2% roughly, times the average bet size. To cover minimum wage. We can raise the price of a hamburger to cover that. But in the casino, in the house bank card room, it's still only a 2% edge on that blackjack bet. You can't change that. Number of bets, we can promote, market, try to get more people in. But the average bet size, if we accept Tim Merrill and Maverick $500 limit, again, that's only a very small portion of the people, but it's something. It would increase our average bet size a little bit. So we're in support of that $500 limit to help cover, basically to help cover the huge, 80 cents doesn't seem like much, and I'm glad that people have it, but when you multiply it over all the hours we're open and all the employees, we got to cover $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 in more payroll this year. So that will help us cover that payroll and stay in business. Thank you. And
right.
Any questions? I could talk about this all day.
Okay. No, thank you, Mr. Faulkner. I'm not seeing any questions for you. So we are still in public comment. Let me see. I see no other hands raised. I will give folks just a minute if you wish to make public comment on this. Please raise your hand using the functionality. All right, I am not seeing any other hands raised. Anything in the chat that I need to worry about? Julie Anderson doesn't look like to me. Okay, so we will close public comment. Are there any further questions or comments from commissioners prior to a motion?
Chair, there's a hand up.
I do. Mr. Johns, can you please, looks like you just muted yourself. If you can put yourself.
Sorry, yeah, no, that was inadvertent. I was trying to hit the chat.
Okay. We'll go ahead and reopen public comment, Mr. Johns, if you would like to make public comment.
Yeah, no, sorry, that was inadvertent. I was trying to hit the chat.
Oh, okay. All right. So commissioners, is there a motion?
Commissioner Levy, I move to initiate rulemaking proceedings as proposed for further discussions.
Okay, is there a second? Well, I am likely to vote against that motion, but I will second it so that we can have a discussion. Commissioner Levy, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I just think that the last time this was looked at was 2016, and we have a different commission. I'm not saying necessarily that I'm for or against this. I would just like to hear the history and kind of what's happened in the past. And I do think that a lot of things have changed, including the minimum wage increases and the fact that, card rooms haven't increased their wages since I think it was 2009. It's quite a while. So I just think it's something to look at. And I don't want to just dismiss it outright for those reasons.
All right, thank you. And I will suggest that I am not, I couldn't be, it's not that I could not be swayed on this topic at some point. In my mind, with a gambling prevalence study due us in the next 6 months or so, as well as, really just a very dynamic market right now. I'm hesitant to approach something this kind of big. And even though if we were to accept it, we could modify it pretty dramatically, even if we wanted. I am more interested maybe in having a separate dialogue outside of the rulemaking process to discuss wagering limits. I would really like to see the gambling prevalence study prior to beginning that conversation. So for those reasons, in addition, I am really struggling with our core mission and legislative declaration to contemplate a pretty, essentially a 60% or a 300% increase in wager limits. So for those reasons, I would deny the petition or certainly accept its withdrawal if that was in the interest of the petitioner. So Commissioner Reeves.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I am also struggling. I heard the petitioner talk about, when I asked the question about what has changed from 2016 to now, I think highlighted, the words like staffing, etc. But as somebody who hears those words a lot, particularly in economic development, I guess I'm not clear on the correlation. And so I don't want to jump to conclusions or assumptions on behalf of the petitioner about making a correlation between, increased labor costs or, business stimulant relationships, or even cost of living adjustments or inflation. And so open to the dialogue, but I guess that was also my question maybe to staff is there. So staff, I'm very clear that we have 60 days to respond to this petition. I understand that, but I guess I'm trying to find the third way, which is how do we get to some more of that quantitative data that draws the correlation for us into the changing economic status that would warrant this petition being approved. And I don't know if there's a way to do that outside of the rulemaking process. So if staff says rulemaking is how we do that at this agency, great. Can somebody come on and just let me know that? If not, I'd love to hear what other options we have available to us.
I see you, Tina.
Hello, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Reeves. So I think that you could do that during the rulemaking process, but I also agree that you can do that outside of the rulemaking process as well. You could pull stakeholders together, I believe, at any point in time and have that conversation. And if you did it during the rulemaking process, this is just to initiate rulemaking. It would be to file the 101. I'd look to Ashley and Suzanne, but if a 101 is filed, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's a guarantee that it's going to get a 103 over. So I think there are avenues to have that discussion in either capacity. So I would offer that.
Okay, and I see our attorney popped on screen. Is that to address us, Suzanne?
That was, if you have a moment, I was just going to echo what Tina said. The filing of a CR 101 merely initiates rulemaking. It is entirely within the Commission's discretion what direction, if any, it wishes to take that initiated rulemaking, and rules may be withdrawn and rulemaking stopped even after filing a CR 101. So there is no guarantee that simply starting the rulemaking process requires enacting a final rule. I also agree with Tina that this discussion could happen both during rulemaking or outside of the rulemaking process. So you have options.
Do you have a follow-up, Commissioner Reeves? And then I see you, Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, so my follow-up would be that please remind me if you can, based on Commissioner Levy's motion, if we wanted to put sideboards around the data that we would want back to help inform our decision making in that rulemaking process. Does that have to be part of the motion, or is that just something that we can enter into public record as part of testimony to move that process forward? Does my question make sense? And I guess that's to Suzanne, because you kind of have the legal perspective.
Yes. And to the extent you wanted to enter into rulemaking, you do not need to, beyond setting the parameters of what the rulemaking is entailing in the CR 101, you do not need to set sort of what the commission considers within that rulemaking at this time.
All right, Commissioner Levy, and then we'll see where we're at from there.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I initiated rulemaking is just to get the conversation started. I understand we can do it outside of the rulemaking process, but I don't know that we'll actually move the conversation forward, right? Like, this is a way that we know we have to do stuff and get this action going. And that's all I want is a conversation, some information, some more, Commissioner Reeves has brought up some good points. I think this is just a way to kind of push it forward.
All right, thank you. Any other commissioner questions, comments? Commissioner Lawson.
Thank you, Chair Sizemore. I think I agree with my other commissioners here in that I feel like there does need to be more discussion, but I believe that I would prefer to do it in a more informal setting outside of the rulemaking process, so that we can flesh these issues out, and that way, if we are going to move forward with rulemaking, we have a clearer idea of what our goals are in the rulemaking process.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, I am committed to putting in effort and time to have this discussion outside of the rulemaking process as well. So I think I will go to the petitioner. Mr. Merrill, you've been present for this discussion. Are you still a proponent of this motion being considered? Or are you of the mind that maybe withdrawing at this point and having a more informal discussion over the next few months to make a determination whether maybe resubmit it at a later date?
Chairman, can I ask one question before I make that decision?
Absolutely.
My question would be, how are we comfortable, or how is the commission comfortable allowing limits such as this at the tribal facilities and the new compacts, but then when we bring it forward for private enterprise, all of a sudden there's not a comfort level at the commission?
And I'll ask if staff has any comment on that.
That's through negotiations, so that's my only response with that.
Commissioner Reeves?
And my response, Mr. Merrill, and I can't speak for the rest of the commission, is I don't necessarily have a discomfort with the question that you are asking. I think what is different for me in this process is, I'll just be candid, a lack of a well-articulated argument about the necessity for it. So I'm not saying no to it. I just want to understand how the argument that you made, like in your last presentation, you did a great job bringing a PowerPoint. You kind of showed us kind of what your intention was with requesting that petition. This to me just seemed very 50,000 foot. And I unfortunately am somebody who, as my colleagues know, I get in the weeds on stuff and I want to understand the reasoning behind it. And so would just love to engage in that dialogue with you about, help me understand. I'm new to the commission, but help me understand, to your articulation, how this impacts your workforce. Help me understand how this impacts your economic, return on investment. I just want to understand those things. So I think if you're hearing any hesitancy, again, I won't speak for my colleagues, but from me, it's that I just want more data.
Sure. We'd be happy to withdraw at this point. and come back with a more of an informal conversation with the commission.
Okay, great. I do have a motion and a second on the table. So with that, I would withdraw my second. Are you willing to withdraw your motion, Commissioner Levy?
Yes, withdrawn.
Okay, motion and second are withdrawn. So with that, Mr. Merrill, I will make sure that staff reaches out to you very shortly, and we can start. I'll have a discussion with our interim director, and we can start laying out a bit of a timeline and so that we can make sure that we're making progress on this discussion.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Reeves, go ahead.
And I realize, as Suzanne said, that there will be space in this dialogue. But Mr. Merrill, I hope, and if it's not clear about my interest in data, please don't hesitate to reach out to me in particular. And I'm happy to kind of provide the sideboards running around in my head to help inform that dialogue.
Absolutely, Commissioner. I'll set up some time to meet with you.
That's great. Thank you.
And I'm going to do a quick check-in with my AAG. Suzanne, can you confirm that we've handled this appropriately and the withdrawal is appropriate?
I believe I clearly heard that the petition for rule amendment is withdrawn, and I also believe I clearly heard that the motion and second is therefore also withdrawn. Therefore, I think that this issue is currently moot.
Okay.
So,
thanks. I don't even play a lawyer on TV, so I like to check in on some of those things. So thank you. So with that, we are done with that tab, and we will now move. And I need to find my agenda. Sorry, everyone. The next item up for discussion under tab 7 is a petition for rule change, petition to amend, and the topic is use of an iDrop kiosk. We have Ashley Layden back. So welcome back, Ashley. And again, I believe Mr. Merrill is the petitioner. So Ashley, go ahead.
Chair Sizemore, Commissioners and ex officios, for the record, I'm Ashley Layden, Rules Coordinator with the Gambling Commission. Tim Merrill of Maverick Gaming in Kirkland, Washington is proposing to amend a number of rules to allow for the use of a ticket in, ticket out system using the iDrop kiosk device in card rooms to purchase and redeem tickets for table games play. According to the petitioner, iDrop enables players to purchase chips directly at the live gaming table from the dealer and brings ticket in, ticket out to live gaming tables, thus allowing players to move directly from live game to live game without having to go to the cage cashier. Players are able to cash out at any time on the live gaming table and receive their money in ticket form paid by the iDrop kiosk. The iDrop bill acceptor system allows for easy accounting and verification of all cash in and out at each live gaming table. Transaction history can be viewed in real time in the event that a customer dispute arises, and decreases the threat of counterfeit bills because every bill is verified using the iDrop bill acceptor. The petitioner also feels that manipulation in the count room would become impossible. The petitioner feels this change is needed because this change would allow card rooms the ability to validate and count the drop on live table games using real-time data for efficient reporting of revenue. The petitioner feels there will be an increase in security because the funds will always be in secure boxes. The use of tickets will allow for a quick and secure count by having tickets to validate from data already collected at the table games. Lastly, but the petitioner feels this will help combat the passing of counterfeit bills by using the ticket in, ticket out device on the table games to validate all bills for authenticity. The petitioner feels the effect of this rule change would allow the use of tickets and kiosk systems instead of only allowing the purchase of chips using cash and the redemption of chips at the cage. If the petition is accepted, card room and manufacturer rules will need to be amended and additional rules may need to be adopted. Staff has the following policy concerns with this petition. While this equipment could reduce criminal behavior, such as the passing of counterfeit bills and theft, staff is unsure how the use of iDrop will impact any anti-money laundering efforts. I shouldn't say any impact anti-money laundering efforts. Staff has concerns about the ability to maintain a closed system. Other impacts or changes the use of this equipment could bring to the card room operation, such as count room procedures, accounting, elimination of the cage, etc. The security and integrity of equipment and connectivity of the card room's accounting systems. Under the requirements of the Administrative Procedure Act, the Commission must take action on this petition within 60 days of receiving it. Your options are to accept the petition and initiate rulemaking proceedings by filing the rule as proposed for further discussion, or to deny the petition in writing, stating the reasons for denial, or where appropriate, indicate alternative means by which the agency will address concerns raised in the petition. Staff recommends accepting this petition and initiate rulemaking while understanding that the equipment proposed will need to be submitted and evaluated by Gambling Commission staff under WAC 230-17-192, submission of electronic or mechanical gambling equipment during the rulemaking process before staff can begin to finalize rules related to this petition. And with that, I'll now turn it over to Mr. Merrill of Manverette Gaming to speak to his petition. And he's got a presentation that I will show as well.
Okay. Welcome back, Mr. Merrill.
Thank you.
Okay.
We can just skip to the overview one more.
Okay.
All right. So what we're trying to do is bring the ticket in, ticket out technology used on slot machines to the table games. The objective is to implement a new product in all location. It's going to eliminate passing and counterfeit bills, provide a control. It's going to reduce the ability for people to launder money. We're able to, in this system, you're able to actually track the ticket associated with the card number, and then therefore their play also on the tables. The use of the secure validator stacker box keeps the cash inserted in the bill acceptor protected. We can fully audit the transactions at all the tables. It eliminates guests carrying chips to the cage and avoids guests walking out with chips. It also improves our operational efficiency because it allows us to reduce the number of fills and credits we do at the tables because we're always collecting the chips back. The other thing that we didn't put in here, but it happens, is we unfortunately in the card room business get robbed once in a while. What this is going to do, because we're able to use kiosks to allow people to cash out, it reduces the amount of cage cash we have. So therefore, we're less desirable for armed robbery. If you want to go to, we got a little demo from the supplier on how it works. It's only a couple minutes. We thought we could show you a video.
Give me just a second, and I've got that ready here.
Ashley, is there sound to this or is it just a video?
It's just a video.
Okay.
The supplier didn't have sound. So you see, they take the money in, it validates it in the bill validator, and then they give the checks to the customer, the chips. So then when the customer is ready to cash out, again, you validate the amount, you type it in. There we go. In real life, it'll go faster than that. And it prints a ticket directly from the tray that is then given to the customer. Last is the redemption at the table. Ticket goes just directly back into the BV. In this case, it tells the dealer what was redeemed, and you give the checks to the customer. So we just took a minute to summarize the transaction flow. It would be buy-in. That's when they take cash to the dealer. Same processes that are already approved in the state would be used to then verify that cash amount, cut the chips out. The cash would then go into the BV. It would be authenticated, go in as a secondary measure, and then we would then hand the chips off to the customer. Ticketing's the same way, except this time they're going from table A to table B with a ticket that they've cashed out. They put the ticket into the BV. It will tell the dealer how much to give the customer. Dealer cuts that out and gives it to the customer. Ticket out is when they want to cash out. So they've played, they have chips, they want to go or they want to go to another table. They turn their chips in. The dealer puts in, after the amount's verified, the dealer puts that into the kiosk. It prints the ticket out. And then there's a ticket to redemption kiosk. That's where we're hoping a majority of the transactions occur when the customer wants to cash out. But they just go to a kiosk, they put their ticket in, and then it cashes out. And then obviously there are, as brought up by staff, some people would think about anti-money laundering. Actually, the AML program takes this into account. So it tracks the buy-in, ticket in and ticket out of every customer during the day. When it hits reportable thresholds for a known customer, it records those amounts. If a CTR needs to be completed on a customer, then when they go to the kiosk to cash out, that CTR is completed in the back end using the same systems we have today. And then the TITO system and the kiosks are configured that at certain levels identification is required on unknown customers. And with that identification is not received, then those transactions are not processed. I think that is my presentation.
Okay, great. Commissioner Reeves, I see your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So similar to my last question, and Mr. Merrill, if you know the answer to this, feel free to chime in. But for staff, is this type of service offered anywhere else in the gambling system in Washington? And if so, can you highlight where? And if not, similar to the last instance, initiating rulemaking here would be essentially creating a dialogue to talk about a pilot exploration of this particular activity. Is that correct?
Correct. So this is not Tina Griffin, interim director. So this is not authorized in commercial nonprofit or tribal gaming facilities. Ticket in, ticket out is authorized for tribal lottery systems, but nothing is authorized in the state of Washington for table games.
So again, this would be essentially a potential pilot to understand all of the opportunities, challenges, pros, cons, etc. That's what staff would be exploring in the rulemaking process, correct?
Yes, thank you. sorry, I missed the last part of the question and answering the last part of the question. So yes, so one of our rules, 230.17, my apologies for not having it in front of me.
192.
Thank you, Ashley. So 230.17.192 states that when there is rulemaking that would involve equipment, that we have to receive that equipment so we have an opportunity to truly understand what is being proposed and to find out how it works, et cetera. And so that we can make sure that during the rulemaking, we outline the parameters of how that equipment is going to be used. So we did this exact same process just recently through the electronic raffle, 50/50 nonprofit raffle systems. And so during that process, we review the equipment and make sure that we're capturing everything that we need to through the initial set of rulemaking. So, and then we also obviously are making sure that the equipment is within the confines of that could be within our scope of authority in rulemaking, right? And so if the equipment does something that would need to have a legislative change, then we have that conversation, et cetera. So yes.
Perfect. Thank you, Director. That answers both my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Any further questions, discussion here prior to public comment? All right, I'm not seeing any other commissioners raise. Oh, Commissioner Reeves.
Sorry. And so I just want to make sure that I heard Mr. Merrill correctly. Mr. Merrill, your articulation is that initiating this particular activity on the premises of your facilities, that you see this as a safety and security measure as well. Is that an accurate assessment of
That's correct.
What you're articulating? Okay, thank you very much.
All right. So with that, we will go ahead and open the floor up for public comment. So if you wish to make public comment on this iDrop concept rulemaking, now would be the time. And again, we'll use the functionality of the Teams. And I am not seeing any hands. Julie Anderson, are you seeing anyone?
No, sir. Nothing in the chat.
Okay. Commissioner Reeves, well, I'll go ahead and close public comment, and I'm open. Well, Commissioner Reeves, go ahead, and then we'll be open for a motion.
Yep, I was just getting in line, sir.
All right. Floor is yours.
Great. Mr. Chair, I would like to recommend that we accept this petition and file initial rulemaking with the understanding that obviously, as Director Griffin, Interim Director Griffin articulated, that the equipment being discussed in this particular petition needs to be submitted and evaluated by the Commission staff pursuant to WAC 230.17.192 before we can begin to finalize any rulemaking beyond the initial 101.
All right. So I believe that your motion is to initiate this rulemaking proceedings as proposed by staff for further discussion. Is there a second?
Commissioner Levy will second.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Reeves, seconded by Commissioner Levy to initiate rulemaking proceedings as proposed by staff for further discussion. Is there any further commission discussion? All right, hearing none, we will attempt a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. All right, I believe that's that we're done with you, Mr. Merrill. Is that accurate?
Thank you for your time today, commissioners.
Thank you. Appreciate you hanging in there. I'm not sure whether we're done with Ashley, though. So the next item on our agenda is rule up for discussion. This is under and possible action, tab 8.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'm so sorry for interrupting you, and Ashley, I apologize. For those of us who are experiencing some grumbling tummies, can you articulate for us when you perceive that we might be able to take a break to eat as well, just so that I can tell my stomach to shut up?
My hope was that we could complete the public meeting by 1 o'clock at the latest. Can people make it till 1?
If that's your goal, sir, that's the goal. Let's do it.
Okay. That's what I'd like to do. We can then take a few minutes and do our executive session while we're snacking or eating. So, so with that, and thank you for the question. So tab 8, rules up for discussion and possible action. This is chapter 230.19, the WAC for sports wagering. And we have not only Ashley Layden, our rules coordinator, but also Julie Lease, our tribal liaison. So I'll let you two present however you would like.
Okay. Chair Sizemore, Commissioners and ex officios, for the record, I'm Ashley Layden, the Rules Coordinator with the Gambling Commission. At the July 2020 meeting, you chose to initiate rulemaking to adopt new rules and amend current rules in order to implement the new sports wagering law. At the October 2021 meeting, you chose to file draft language for further discussion. Language was filed with the Office of the Code Reviser on October 19th, 2021 to be published in the Washington State Register, issue 21-21-094, and was posted on the agency website. At the December 2021 public meeting, based on feedback received from tribal partners and vendor stakeholders, you chose to file changes to the proposed draft language for further discussion. That language was filed with the Office of the Code Reviser on December 22nd, 2021 to be published in the Washington State Register, issue 22-01-213. That revised draft language was sent out to tribal partners and stakeholders on December 27th, 2021 for their review and feedback. On January 6th and 7th of 2022, Gambling Commission staff met with tribal partners to obtain feedback on the proposed changes. The feedback suggested at that time from tribal partners was to remove Chapter 230-19 WAC in its entirety, and instead to amend WAC 230-03-085, denying, suspending, or revoking an application, license, or permit, to include a single statement that sports wagering vendors must follow applicable tribal state compact provisions and tribal laws related to sports wagering. So at this time, staff is recommending that the proposed changes to WAC 230-03-085, denying, suspending, or revoking an application, license, or permit, be filed with the Office of the Code Reviser for further discussion, thus starting the official public comment period, and that the proposed Chapter 230-19 rules be withdrawn. The proposed change to WAC 230-03-085 was sent out to tribal partners and vendor stakeholders on January 10th, 2022 for their review and feedback. Feedback has been received thus far from Kevin Cochran of DraftKings requesting clarification on staff's recommendation today, Matt Evanson of IGT proposing a change to Chapter 230-19 specifically to the accounting records for sports wagering vendors regarding bank reconciliation if commissioners choose to go that route with the Chapter 230-19 rules. And also from Sarah Mail of Canby, providing feedback specific to, again, the integrity monitoring provider requirements in the WAC 230-19 rules. The proposed changes that Gambling Commission staff is recommending are in your packet. The first attachment behind the rule summary that reads recommended language, and that includes the proposed change to WAC 230-03-085, as well as Chapter 230-19 rules in strikeout to represent the recommendation to withdraw that language. Additionally, the language that was filed on December 22nd, 2021 is included for your reference, and I welcome any questions that you may have at this time.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. Any questions for Ashley? All right, not seeing any. Julie Lees, did you have further information for us?
Sorry, I should have mentioned, Julie's just here for questions. So,
okay. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So no questions for Ashley. All right. Not seeing any commissioners raise their hands. Then we will open this up for public comment. Is there anyone that wishes to make public comment on the 230-19 conversation and the proposal to instead essentially amend 230-03-085? Ashley, I see your hand.
Yeah, sorry. I just want to add one more thing for clarification. If with staff's recommendation, the proposed change of to WAC 230-03-085 would be filed on January 19th. It would be published on February 2nd, and then action on that could be taken on or after February 22nd. So okay. Either a special meeting or at the March meeting.
Okay, thank you for laying out the timeline for us.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I will restate that I've opened public comment on this proposed rule discussion. Is there anyone that would like to make public comment? Not seeing any hands raised using the functionality. Julie Anderson, are you seeing anything?
Nothing in the chat, sir.
All right. My fellow commissioners, is there a motion?
I move to withdraw WAC 230 2019 and file the draft rule language amending WAC 230-03085 for further discussion as presented by staff. This is Commissioner Lawson.
Okay, is there a second?
Commissioner Levy seconds.
Okay, it has been moved by Commissioner Lawson and seconded by Commissioner Levy to file the draft language withdrawing WAC 230-19 and amending WAC 230-03085 for further discussion as presented by staff. I feel a sneeze coming, so I may have to mute at some point here, but so far working through it. Is there discussion on the motion? I have a comment that I'll add, and really it is an acknowledgement of the continued work by our staff, all the stakeholders, and our partners in this endeavor. This is, continuously kind of revising the way we view things and how we try to efficiently meet our obligations to the citizens of the state and to our partners and licensees and our staff. So I just want to publicly thank everyone for all of the work that has gone on to this point. Hopefully we've gotten closer at each step, and hopefully we've reached a very acceptable set of rules here. Any other comment prior to a vote? Okay, seeing none, we'll try a voice vote again. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Ashley, and your availability, Julie Lees. We appreciate that. And we can now move to tab 9 in our agenda, which is a 2022 legislative session update. I know it's day 4 of session, but probably feels like week 4 for Tommy. Tommy Oakes.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I guess I can say that's almost noon. So good afternoon. So good afternoon, Chair and ex officios. For the record, my name is Tommy Oakes, and I am interim legislative liaison, and I'm here to give you the legislative update. As you know from the legislative session started on Monday, in your packet is a memo from me regarding that legislative session. I will go over the highlights, and there's some changes to this memo as it was written a few days ago, and things change very quickly in session, I've learned. Some highlights are Thursday, February 3rd is policy committee cutoff, and Monday, February 7th is fiscal committee cutoff. The first floor cutoff will occur after our February meeting on the date of February 15th of 2022. Our agency requests legislation. We had a hearing actually in that yesterday. Director Griffin and I testified on this bill, and it was in front of the Senate Labor, Commerce, and Tribal Affairs. Hearing went well, and we're waiting to see what the next steps are going to be. The House Bill 1674, authorizing sports wagering at card rooms and racetracks. I have a meeting with Representative Wallen tomorrow to discuss this bill and get more on that. And so that's that. Kind of another highlight, House Bill 1626 is updating the authority for the Fish and Wildlife Commission to adopt rules implementing electronic licensing practices. We had an issue with it because it had raffle tickets in there as online raffle tickets. And so we ended up having a meeting with their staff, and they were really helpful. And it resulted in yesterday they had a hearing in the Rural Development, Agricultural, and Natural Resources, and they offered an amendment to the bill which took out the word raffle tickets for online. So that was good. There's several law enforcement bills that are going through that are going to have impacts on us. In some regards, I wanted to add, besides the ones that you see that you have in your memo, House Bill 1735 by Representative Johnson and House Bill 1776 by Representative Goodman. These are bills that are kind of cleaning up the unintended consequences from last year's legislation. So these are bills that are cleaning, with big legislation like that, there's always going to be some things they have to go back and get. And so this is kind of what they're doing here, some changing of languages and wording, so it's much more clear for us in law enforcement. So we'll be watching those. And then any questions on those bills?
I am not seeing any hands raised, Tommy. I think you can continue.
Perfect. All right. So the big item we're working on right now is a letter that was sent out yesterday to various legislators regarding the unintended consequences of Senate Bill 5051 that was passed last year. This bill had to do with certification and decertification of peace officers. We were not included in this bill because the bill changed our definition to reserves. The Criminal Justice Commission was required to write, CJTC was required to write a report on this bill and its impacts. According to CJTC's report entitled State Oversight and Accountability of Peace Officers and Correction Officers, CJTC is taking the position that they're not required to train reserve officers, and which is now how we're defined. And so they're no longer going to allow us to be going to the police academies and train us. And they also advised us that all of our past law enforcement training is now going to be expired. The way it stands right now is that if this does not change and it stays in this interpretation, then all limited law enforcement agencies such as ours will be forced to create our own police academy to get our officers trained, because we're not going to have any other options for training. I believe the legislative intent of this bill was to include all peace officers, to include us, and that's what I've heard with legislators that I've been talking, and this was an oversight. The intent of this bill was to give police officers more training and to hold them accountable. We are now going to not have any training, and we're still not going to be held accountable according to 5051. So we sent this letter that it's in your packet, and we were looking to get a legislative fix. And what we're hoping that is that we get certified under 5051 and then have CJTC mandated to train us equally. We're not looking for any type of expansion of our authority, and we're just trying to get where we want equal training and equal accountability. And that's all we're trying to do. And we're trying to get this legislative fix. So that's what we're really working on right now is trying to get that going. It is a short session, so I know this is a tall task. I know this is, but we're trying to really work with lawmakers. We've got a positive response from a lot of the lawmakers, understanding that their legislative intent was to bring us in under 5051, and it was just a definition oversight. And so we're hoping to get that resolved. So that's kind of what we're working on. That's all I have.
Okay, are there any questions for Tommy? All right, I'll simply, go ahead, Commissioner Reeves.
No, I was just going to say, I know that I had one because I talked to Tommy a couple days ago, and I know I'm supposed to ask it, and my brain is totally broken, Tommy. There was something I wanted you to do in your legislative capacity. I'll remember it here in a minute, Mr. Chair. Sorry.
Okay. And maybe I'll spur it here. So the training and certification, and if we use the term certification, I think it can get confusing. So I think if let's just use the term training and assume that training means you've gotten a certificate or whatever at the completion of it. So what in my reading is a misinterpretation of some legislation from last year. The agency's faced with this potential that we are cut out from availability of training, and it brings into question our prior completion of training, and for that to still continue to be valid. So I guess I think that is a very important issue. It seems like you and the interim director have made some good headway in your conversations with legislators, and I guess I wanted to, just so that you guys feel like you're continuing on the right path, based on the memo and the update, are there any commissioners that have any objections to Tommy continuing to try to ensure that our folks at the end of the day have get credit for the training, and that we are striving to have an avenue towards that training through is based on that, is there any objections?
I guess I'm not sure I understand your question, Mr. Chair. You're saying, is it okay for Tommy and the director to keep working towards ensuring that our officers are covered through CJCT to be able to get their training? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, totally on board with that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if there was a bill number, then, that would be, we just reference that, but lacking that, who knows what the solution ultimately will be, but I think I just want to make sure that Tommy and the interim director are aware that we're supporting their efforts.
I'd love to add to that dialogue, Mr. Chair, if that's appropriate at this time. Absolutely. So I think, obviously having served in the building, recognize that there are always unintended consequences from any legislation that is passed through the building. So Tommy, thank you for first and foremost highlighting the unintended consequences of prior legislation and the impact that could potentially have on our ability to accomplish our mission at hand. Secondly, I guess I would say that recognizing the intent of the legislation, the original legislation, is really about ensuring more training for our officers and doing so with an equity and inclusion mindset, as a result. So I think would just echo the chairman that if our goal is to ensure accountability for our officers, then we've also got to make sure that we've got the appropriate resources and training available to them. And I think it would be unfair to hold our officers accountable to, quite frankly, to standards that they're not able to gain access to actually meet through a training mechanism. And I think that's a pretty big unintended consequence of the legislation. So really would encourage you, Tommy, to continue and with the interim director to continue pursuing that on behalf of the commission, because I think the long-term potential ripple effect of that could be, quite frankly, very damaging for us. And I want to see if we can resolve that sooner rather than later. If there's anything that we can be doing as members of the commission to support you in that, please don't hesitate to I can only speak for me, but don't hesitate to reach out and let me know.
Thank you. Thank you. I will.
Okay. Thank you. I think you clarified my thoughts. Thank you, Commissioner Reeves.
Thanks for reminding me what I was thinking.
Yeah. Is there any further questions, comments for Tommy and the legislative update?
No, I think I mentioned this when Tommy and I spoke the other day too, just like what can the commission be doing? So if there's anything that we can do specifically, let us know. I'm certainly more than happy to help however I can.
Yeah, for sure. I will definitely be coming back to you probably in February of where the status is and what we're meeting resistance or where we're having issues that we need some push, right? So I'll come back for that for sure.
And Mr. Chair, if you'll indulge, this is more less a question and more a comment. I just want to publicly thank you, Tommy. I know you kind of jumped into this position very late into the process with the departure of Mr. Considine. I just want to kind of put out into the public record that it's really been a pleasure getting to work with you over these last couple of months. You're engaged, you're thoughtful, and I think that that is absolutely what our agency needs as we're doing work on the Hill to advocate on behalf of the mission of the organization. So just really want to commend you. I recognize we're only 4 days into session, but you're doing a fantastic job. Keep it up.
Well, thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate all the guidance that I'm getting from commissioners and interim director. And it was a lot of team here. And I really appreciate it. We have a lot of people working behind the scenes, and I really appreciate all the help I'm receiving. And so thank you so very much for the kind words. And I will be reaching out to all of you to help me. Probably this is a pretty big issue. This is really, I think, one of the most important things that I've seen in my short time here, but I think it's very important, and this is going to take a lot of energy.
All right. Thanks, Tommy. And you finished, I think, in half the time that our former legislative liaison usually took for his update. So good on you.
Thank you.
Sure that'll get out to him.
I was like, he's going to see that, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair.
Yes, and I'm all right with that. So that closes out this agenda item for our 2022 legislative session update and moves us very much closer to the end of our agenda. The next item we have is a director hire update, and I believe our HR director, Lisa Benavides, should be with us and can take this topic. Lisa?
I am here.
Nice.
Good afternoon, Chair Sizemore, commissioners, ex officios, and staff. For the record, my name is Lisa Benavides, and I'm the HR Director for the Gambling Commission. I'm here today to provide a brief update on the status of the director hire. So I understand that Commissioner Reeves will appreciate the brevity of this update here. On November 10th, at a public meeting, commissioners decided to move their top 2 candidates forward for further consideration. Both candidates have confirmed their continued interest in this position, so that is a positive. Both candidates have been invited to an interview, and they've both accepted this invitation. They will both be interviewed during executive session at a meeting to be scheduled for next week. Immediately following those interviews, the commissioners will have the option to make a motion on which, if any of those candidates, they would like to move forward. If a decision is made to move candidates forward, then HR staff will move the finalist through the reference checks and other background checks and examinations required for the position. So there will be further update, very likely, at our February meeting. But as of right now, the next steps in this process are the interviews that will occur next week. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions, comments for the HR director? Commissioner Reeves?
I just want to say thanks for brief remarks, because that's like one step closer to lunch. So really
You're
appreciate
very
that,
welcome.
Lisa. But I just really wanted to comment, Mr. Chair, and thank you again, Director, and to your team for all of the work that you all have invested, whether it's drafting the questions, et cetera, and really engaging the commission in that process. And look forward to the opportunity to connect next week.
Thank you.
Okay. Not seeing any other questions or comments. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
All right. And we will now go to open public comment. So at this point in our meeting, we will open the floor. We will use the functionality of the Teams platform. So if you wish to address the commission, you may. And I see Roxanne Waldron. So again, if you wish to speak, then we'll ask that you go on camera, unmute yourself, and then identify yourself for the record.
Hi, this is Roxanne Waldron. I'm the State Problem Gambling Program Manager, and at the risk of standing between you and lunch, I will keep this very brief. I want to keep commissioners happy. So I just want to make a couple comments. One is on the HB 1674, which is authorizing sports wagering in commercial card rooms and horse racing at horse racing venues. And so I'm not going to address this being an expansion of a new gambling activity. I know it's a much larger discussion. However, I did have some specific concerns about it that I wanted to bring to your attention. One is that the 1-800-GAMBLER number is the helpline number for West Virginia, not Washington State. Secondly, there is no steady funding tied to problem gambling based on volume. In fact, it offers 50% of unclaimed winnings that sit for a year. So that has nothing to do with the volume of sports wagering. And thirdly, it's not clear as it's written if it supersedes the B&O tax. That's really unclear to me in analyzing this bill. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention that as the state problem gambling program manager, I see some issues with that bill around how it is written. Secondly, I just want to say for future consideration, and I know we're moving forward with the sports wagering rules right now, and so I didn't want to bring this up during this conversation, but I think in future consideration, when and if you look at the rules again, you might think about looking and adopting a sports bettors bill of rights. There is one in Virginia that's a great model. It's only one page, but it covers protection for sports bettors. So I wanted to bring that up as something to think about for the future.
All right. Thank you for that, Roxanne. And Commissioner Reeves, you.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Roxanne, thank you for highlighting that. Is that something that you have easily accessible and would be willing to share with the commission? And if not, can we ask staff on our team to dig that up and send it our way?
Yeah, I have it on my screen right now, so I will send it to the commission staff.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Roxanne. All right. Is there anyone else that would like to make public comment? All right. I am not seeing any other raised hands. Julie Anderson, anyone reaching out in another fashion?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, with that, it appears that we have completed our work for the public meeting portion of this meeting. The commission will, excuse me, let me get to the right sheet here. The commission does have need to go into executive session. So we will go immediately into executive session. We'll probably take about 10 minutes to gather a little snack of some sort. We're anticipating about 90 minutes. So I would anticipate that we will go back into public meeting at approximately 2 o'clock for the sole purpose of adjourning. So purpose of this executive session is to discuss potential agency litigation with legal counsel, including tribal negotiations. So with that, we'll close recess the public meeting until 2 o'clock when we will return for the sole purpose of adjournment. With that, I'll see you, fellow commissioners, at the executive session. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And we can just confirm that Julie's going to pull us into that. There's no separate link, correct?
Yep.
Great.
Julie will do her best.
Yes.
When is it starting? You said 10 minutes. So 12:30?
Yeah, at 12:30. Let's go ahead and be prepared to start.
Okay.
Thank you.